Over the years, our kids have had a lot of illnesses. 6 kids means a lot of childhood sniffles and coughs. And when our kids weren't feeling well, it affected our entire home. Luckily, some clever guys in Brisbane have come up with the perfect solution: Rehydrate.
Rehydrate are delicious drinks that rehydrate up to 3 times faster than water alone, packed with essential electrolytes. Rehydrate is one of the few rehydration products that is safe for all ages. Stock up at Coles and be prepared whenever illness strikes. This is the all-new Positivity Podcast. Hi, my name's Dr. Justin Coulson. Welcome to the podcast that's designed to make your life, your work, and your family happier. I'm so excited. Today, I'm going to be sharing something that I'm so passionate about. As you know, this podcast used to be all about parenting, and I love talking about parenting. But as I mentioned in the last podcast, I'm shifting the focus of what I talk about with you just a little bit starting today. And I think that you are going to love it. I'm going to be starting each podcast with something to help you to be more positive in life and to boost the positivity around you. I'm going to be keeping the Ask Dr. Justin segment in the podcast because parenting is just a critical part of what I do, what I talk about. So it's not going to hurt you if I keep on chatting about that with you. But after the positivity advice and the parenting advice, the parenting hack that I used to wrap up the podcast with is gone. Instead, I'm going to be sharing my favourite positivity quote of the day related to the topic wherever I can find one. And the idea is I want you to be inspired. I want you to have a focus for the week. I want you to just be really, really pumped about making things as good as you can. So hopefully the new format's going to work really, really well for you, and it's going to make you and your family and your whole life more positive. In today's podcast, I can't wait to get into it. I'm talking optimism. Not so much the glass is half full kind of optimism, although that is very important and we will touch on that. But instead, I'm talking about the optimism where we're looking for really good things to come. We're hoping for a better future. And I'm going to share some strategies to help you to be more optimistic, and also to help you maybe at work with your employees or other staff members, to help you in the classroom if you're a school teacher, to help your students be more optimistic, or to help you at home, just to help the kids to be more optimistic as well. For my Ask Dr. Justin segment, this is a tough one. I'm answering a question from a mum who is thinking about leaving her partner, and she wants to know whether the kids are going to be okay. I've got some ideas that I think will be helpful and I think can help any family relationship regardless. But up next, ideas about optimising optimism.
Are you pulling your hair out because your child won't listen, won't do what you request? Do you find yourself shouting at the children because you just don't know what else to do? Do you have a child who's aggressive or hurting you or his or her siblings? Or are you dealing with a child that is back-chatting or disrespectful? Are you finding parenting more challenging than you ever thought possible? Dr. Justin Coulson provides one-on-one parenting coaching via Skype or phone and can help you. With parenting coaching, you'll receive personalised individual guidance designed specifically for your family's unique circumstances. Find solutions to the parenting problems that are driving you crazy, effective discipline strategies where you can stop being the drill sergeant, a better relationship with your children, and a happier home where everyone looks forward to being together. For more details and a coaching package that will suit you, visit justincoulson.com/coaching.
You've probably heard the pony joke. The joke concerns twin boys aged about 5 or 6, worried that the boys have developed extreme personalities because one of them's a total pessimist and the other's a complete optimist. The parents say, well, we better take them to the psychologist. The psychologist decides to treat the pessimist first, tries to brighten up his outlook by taking him into a room that's piled to the ceiling with dozens of gifts. They're all wrapped up. But instead of being delighted and thrilled at all the good stuff, the little boy, this pessimist, bursts into tears. And when the psychologist says, well, what's the matter? Trying to work out what's going on with this kid, the little boy says, I want to play with the toys, but when I open them, they're probably not going to be what I want. And even if they are, I'm probably only going to break them. And the psychologist thinks, wow, this kid is really, really pessimistic. Let me try the optimist. So trying to bring the optimist back to something a little bit more balanced, the psychologist takes him into a room that's piled to the ceiling with horse manure. But instead of going, oh, that's gross, and wrinkling up his nose and thinking, oh, what's this psychologist doing to me? The optimist just yelps with delight, dashes into the room, climbs to the top of the heap and starts digging with his hands, scoop after scoop of manure. The psychologist says, what do you think you're doing? And the little boy responds, well, with all of this manure, there must be a pony in here somewhere. And so I love that story. Optimism is when we think that something good is coming, and it's a critical resilience skill. It's also, researchers have found, a very, very powerful way to stave off depression and stress and anxiety, both in ourselves and in our children. If you've ever been feeling really depressed, feeling really low, and somebody says, what are you looking forward to? It's very hard to be looking forward to anything. However, if we can constantly keep in our minds the good things that are coming, we seem to be inoculated against depression. And that's a powerful thing. Now, obviously, life can pretty well knock the optimism out of a lot of us. And if we feel that life is not a particularly positive experience, we can start to feel really hopeless. Hopelessness, that's when you believe that things are bad and they're going to stay bad, unfortunately leads to helplessness, and helplessness leads to depression. But what if we could gain more hope for a better future? What if we could boost our optimism? Would it matter if we were more optimistic or if our children were more optimistic? Now, there are some times, before we get too caught up in the whole optimism thing, there are some times where it pays to be pessimistic. Something could be in our future that is potentially dangerous. And studies have shown that in risky situations, being a pessimist actually helps. It's probably one of the reasons that your stereotypical lawyer or accountant or engineer is a bit pessimistic or even a bit cynical, because they're being paid to find the problems, to be pessimistic and to expect the worst. And because they do that, they manage to deal with risks, to mitigate risks quite effectively. And you've probably heard the saying as well, if at first you don't succeed, then skydiving's probably not for you. Well, in the 1980s, researchers began to notice that some people hold very strong, fixed, permanent beliefs about personality. They might say, let's take teenagers, for example. They might say something like, I'm a loser and I'm always going to be a loser. Or they might say, I suck at maths, I'm just stupid when it comes to numbers. I can't figure out polynomials and calculus, it's dumb, plus I'm never going to use it anyway. If you've got teenagers, or if you've been a teenager, you might have felt like that. Or perhaps something even more heartbreaking, I'm ugly, or I'm unattractive, my face is full of pimples, I'm going to be stuck like this forever. And teenagers are not the only ones that get pessimistic and hold these really strong, permanent beliefs about who they are and what they're capable of doing. Adults say things like, I'm just no good at relationships. I never was and I never will be. Adults say once a loser, always a loser. And adults, unfortunately, are even critical about their bodies from time to time. They might say, look at my body, I'll never be in shape. Now listen to the permanence of these words. Always, never, never was, never will be, never be in shape, always a loser. I'm just stupid, I'm ugly. All these things are so permanent and fixed, and they're actually implying that there's something intrinsically wrong with us. And when there's something intrinsically wrong with us, it's almost like we're a victim. We can't do anything about it. And it becomes all-encompassing. It paralyzes our kids, it paralyzes us, it reduces our faith in the future, and it closes us off to the possibility of good things happening. These are pessimistic and negative things to be concentrating on, a negative self-talk. It's like we've got a bully inside us that's just bashing us again and again and again until we accept it, and it's such a harmful way for us to be. Well, if we don't want to harm hope, if we don't want to shut down optimism, we need to be aware of what we can do instead. And I'm going to share with you 5 strategies to optimise optimism. And I want you to know that research shows that if we can boost optimism, we actually get better outcomes. If we can convince ourselves or our kids or our students or our employees that the beliefs that come from the inner bully are not fixed, that they can be changed, that people can change, that personalities can change. If we can create in the people around us and in ourselves a belief that we can grow and change and nothing is permanent or fixed, research shows that we get better and so do the people around us. So here are 5 strategies to optimise optimism. Number 1, emphasise the word yet. Y-E-T, 3 little letters. Here's the thing. When we tell ourselves, I can't, what we need to do is stop and maybe give yourself a little smile and gently add the word yet to the end of your sentence. If you say, I just can't do it anymore, add yet. I just can't do it yet. If your teenager says, I hate calculus, it's stupid, I'll never use it, acknowledge their feelings, and then you might say, it's a real struggle. You can't do it yet. And those 3 little letters imply both an expectation that it will be done and a belief that it can be done. Yet. Okay, number 2, focus on what can be controlled. One of the biggest things about helplessness and hopelessness is we feel like everything's out of our control. We feel like we can't do anything. We're paralysed. One of my daughters, my 4-year-old, whenever we ask her to do a job that she doesn't want to do, she immediately lays down on the floor and she says, I'm glued, I can't do it, I'm glued. And it's wonderfully cute and just absolutely gorgeous. But we kind of get ourselves glued, don't we? We feel like we're glued, we can't control anything, we're helpless, and we are stuck. But when we change the way we're looking at things, when we instead think about what we can control, something remarkable happens. We feel more optimistic. We might ask ourselves, what can I do about it right now? And if we can't do anything at all, just acknowledge that it's a predicament that it really stinks, that there's nothing that can be done, and focus on something that you can do something about somewhere else. If you can do something, focus on options, focus on what's easiest first and build some momentum. As one example, when I was building my business, I went through a phase where absolutely nothing was working. I was not getting any bookings for speaking. I was not selling any books. Nothing was working for me. And I was so worried about it, and I became paralysed. I became stuck. I became hopeless, and I thought, this is never going to work. I think I might have to start looking for a job again. And I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to do what I felt like I was put on this earth to do, which was to share ways that people can make their families happier. What I began to do as I thought through the situation was ask myself, well, what can I do? I don't know what to do. I'm really stuck. I feel glued, but what can I do? And I thought, well, I can pick up the phone and ring some people. It's probably a low probability activity, but I can try. And something remarkable happened. As I did it, I started to have some positive conversations. Some people were interested in having me speak. And that opened up my mind to more and more possibilities. And it took a couple of months, but I went from 0 to business booming in really maybe 6 weeks to 8 weeks, maybe 2 months at the max, because I focused on what I could control. Okay, the third idea, focus on the end. This is a great idea for us as adults, but also particularly for our kids. There was a high school teacher who used to do a regular talk with her students. She'd write on the board, there is life after high school, and it's great. And then she'd chat with the kids about some of the struggles that they're facing, and she would promise that life gets better. And the students, as a result of that talk, really looked forward to the future. They knew that high school would end, that their dramas and struggles in high school would come to a close. The talk had impact, and actually, I've got another story that I want to tell you, but I'll tell you that in just a second. Let me share the next two as well. So far, we've got teach ourselves and our children to focus on the word yet. When we're feeling pessimistic, add yet to the end of our sentences. Secondly, focus on what we control. Third, focus on the end. There is life after this. It will get better. Fourth, understand mindsets. What I recommend here is that you familiarise yourself with research around the way our brains change. You don't have to go into the boring academic stuff. There's some really terrific popular books like Carol Dweck's Mindset or Norman Doidge's The Brain That Changes Itself. These are books that will literally change the way you talk about ability and possibility and the future, and they will inspire you to be more optimistic and believe that things can get better than they are right now with a little bit of effort from yourself. And the fifth thing is just to avoid the superficial. If you're feeling lousy, then being told to cheer up, it'll get better, probably not going to help. Kind of feels dismissive, kind of feels patronising. So acknowledge what's hard, be real about it, and then move on to the four other steps that I've shared. Ignoring things, putting a Band-Aid on it, it won't do anything helpful, and it may actually make you feel more pessimistic, more depressed, more helpless, more hopeless. So they're the 5 ideas for boosting optimism. Emphasize yet, focus on what you can control, focus on the end, understand mindsets, and avoid the superficial. Let me share with you a bonus. Ask the kids every single night, and maybe even ask your partner, your spouse, whoever it is that's in your life, what are you looking forward to? And have a chat each night about what you're looking forward to. Good things are coming. The future is bright. It inoculates us against depression, and it boosts resilience. Now, I did mention that I was going to tell you one more story. This is one of my favourite stories. There was a grandmother, this is a true story, a grandmother was told that her days were numbered, and she was doing her funeral preparations with her family, knowing that she wouldn't be with them for much longer. She started to tell them not to spend too much money on a variety of things, and one of the things that she mentioned was, when I'm buried, just bury me in my pyjamas. I don't want you to spend a lot of money on a funeral gown because I'm just going into the ground. But she said, I'd like you to bury me with a fork. And her family thought that actually was a joke. They said, why would you have us bury you with a fork? And she responded, when I was young, when we'd finished our dinner, we would take our dishes to the sink to wash them. But every now and again, Dad would call out, kids, hold on to your forks. The best is yet to come. And she said when they heard that from their dad, they knew that dessert was coming, and they'd get really excited because dessert was such a treat. She said, when I'm buried, I want you to bury me holding a fork because the best is yet to come. I think that optimism, this belief that good things are coming soon, may be one of our most positive, most beneficial tools for boosting our own and our children's or our students' or our employees' self-belief and reducing the dangers of depression. Good things are coming. The best is yet to come. Believe it. Okay, up next, time to help a mum who wants to know whether leaving her partner is going to affect the children. That's Ask Dr. Justin in just a sec.
Toilet training. It's a milestone that parents look forward to. What is the best way to toilet train our children successfully? Dr. Justin Coulson has written a no mess, no fuss ebook to help, called Toilet Training. Easy as 1, 2, wee. Written for busy parents, you'll whiz through a clear overview of toilet training without getting bogged in too much detail. At just over 20 pages, the ebook can be digested in under 30 minutes. You'll find straight-shooting answers about toilet training based on scientific research, like how to know when your child is ready to toilet train, myths and conspiracy theories about toilet training, and the most popular toilet training approaches and what science says about them. Some toilet training guides take longer to read than it should take to toilet train a child. This is the fast-flowing alternative to get your kids going at the right time, in the right place, and the right way. Toilet Training, easy as 1, 2, wee. Available at major online booksellers now or at justincoulson.com.
This week, a Dear Dr. Justin that's a bit of a tough one. The email that was sent to me was quite long. Let me summarise it in just a couple of sentences. It basically said, Dear Dr. Justin, I'm thinking about leaving my partner of 6 years, but I'm worried about how it will affect my toddler. I'm pregnant with another child to my partner, but staying with him doesn't seem like something I want anymore. Does it matter for my kids, or will they get over it? So here's my response. First up, relationships are tough. And it sounds like your relationship's really getting you down. There's not a lot of context, in spite of the long email, about what's going on in the relationship. So I'm just going to share some general ideas. First of all, it's never easier to leave. The costs are enormous. Emotionally, physically, financially, socially, in every aspect. You lose friends, you lose money, you lose access to your kids, you lose sleep, you lose your health, you lose peace of mind, although that may already be slipping or already gone, depending on what sort of circumstances you're in. But leaving affects everything. And I mean, when I say it affects everything, I read something just the other day that said when we split up our families, it even affects the environment because it means we've got to get another house and another car and pay for all that extra electricity. It's bad in every way, usually. So my 2 cents is this. You owe it to each other and you owe it to your child and your soon-to-be-born child to try and save it. Unless there's abuse, including emotional abuse. If there is abuse, then that changes the scenario. But I'm going to proceed with the last few things that I'm going to mention on an assumption that abuse is not present. If it is present, then the advice changes significantly and it should involve psychologists and legal help. And I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to focus on assuming that abuse is not occurring in this relationship. What do you do? Well, research by the world's leading marriage and divorce academic, Paul Amito, shows that kids are better off in a low conflict but unhappy marriage than in a divorced home. Now, that doesn't tell us everything about how they're better off over the long term, but generally, whatever measures have been included in Paul Amito's research, it suggests that kids are better off if the home is unhappy but low conflict. Now, I know that's really provocative. It's very challenging. But in his work, he wrote a paper that was called A Generation at Risk, Growing Up in an Era of Family Upheaval. In his work, he makes a very, very powerful case to support it. There's also research by another leading marriage scholar by the name of John Gottman, and he indicates that the vast majority of couples actually regret their decision to divorce, but it usually takes several years, usually about 6 years, he suggests. Now, again, I'm not saying that you should not leave. I'm just letting you know that the research indicates that, on the whole, if you can work through it, things will be better. I'm not saying that you regret it. I'm not saying that the relationship should be done. But if there's no abuse, I think that it's worth fighting hard to make it work. The next point that I'll make is this. I'm really curious, and I can't get an answer to it, but I'm really curious about why you've never married. What stopped you committing to the marriage? And the reason that I ask is this. There's some remarkable research that's been carried out over the last couple of decades by a fellow called Scott Stanley. And he calls it the cohabitation effect. Research into cohabitation shows that there's a significant difference in relationship quality and life satisfaction and commitment to the relationship and commitment to children in couples who are cohabiting prior to being engaged and married compared with those who wait to cohabit until they're engaged and married. And obviously that's a diminishing segment of the population as well. Now, the really interesting thing about this research is couples are happier and families are happier. There's higher levels of satisfaction, even sexual satisfaction. I mean, you name it, whatever you're looking at, higher levels of fidelity to the relationship if we wait before we live with somebody until we're engaged or married to them. It's independent of income, religion, education, a whole lot of other variables. So maybe in your relationship, commitment's always been an issue. It's not a judgment, it's just a question. And making that commitment, sealing the deal, seems to do a lot for relationship satisfaction, seems to do a lot for relationship commitment, seems to make the family happier. So let's wrap this up. Should you leave? No one can ultimately decide this, but you. What you're experiencing if you're going through a relationship crisis like this is quite normal, unless, as I've already mentioned, there's abuse, but that wasn't described in the email. The data tells us really clearly that as relationships progress, happiness does decline, particularly when children are in the picture. We get more unhappy as kids get older and as the relationship matures. And I speak to couples regularly who wanted to give up, but they stuck it out and they're grateful that they did. And so are their kids. Okay, that's probably all I can really answer. If you need more advice and you're in that kind of a situation, have a chat with a psychologist and get some personal ideas. You might also, if you are in a tough spot, want to make some legal investigations, but beware of the lawyer whose first statement of business is to organise divorce papers. There's a lot of self-interest involved in that kind of an approach. I hope that helps. Relationships can work, but for them to work, we have to work. So it's about talking to each other. It's about getting on the same page. It's about making a commitment to work at it, and hopefully things will improve. That's my response for this week for Ask Dr. Justin. Remember, you can ask me a question anytime at justincoulson.com/questions. You can leave me a voicemail message or you can email me. All the info you need is at justincoulson.com/questions.
We all love our children, but sometimes they can make life challenging, and we're all searching for the right answers. In the end, all we want is happy children and happy families. Dr. Justin Coulson is one of Australia's most respected parenting voices. His seminars have equipped and empowered thousands of parents to make their families happier. But sometimes getting to a parenting seminar can be tough. There's work and other commitments. Then there's the issue of the children and babysitters. Now you can watch one of Dr. Justin's seminars from the comfort of your own home and at a time that works for you. In this seminar video, available online now, you're invited to sit in on one of Dr. Justin's parenting seminars as he takes you from confusion to clarity. Combining parenting research with heartfelt stories, you'll discover the 3 essential keys to raising a resilient child and creating a happy family. You'll learn how to build a strong connection with your children, how to really understand them, and how to get discipline right. What your child needs from you, a seminar from Dr. Justin Coulson at justincoulson.com. Download this 90-minute seminar now or purchase the DVD at justincoulson.com.
Before I share my awesome optimism quote for this week, a couple of announcements that might be useful for you to know. First off, I am giving a lot of presentations lately at schools, at preschools, at workplaces. I've done workplaces like real estate agencies, swimming school, a law firm. If you're interested in getting me to present at your workplace about being positive, bringing your best self to work, motivating employees, or just having happy families, or if you'd like me to present at your children's school, high school, preschool, I'm offering mates rates until the end of November for anybody who mentions this podcast. So we're talking about a fairly handy discount here. February 2015 is already full. I think I've only got 2 days available in February next year. March is filling up fast. But if you'd like to kick off 2015 on a strong, positive note, get in quick, particularly at work, but maybe even for your schools as well. If I can pat myself on the back for just a sec, my presentations are getting some great reviews. Let me share a couple of very kind things that some people have said about me. The first one comes from Julie Cochran. She's the Deputy Principal at Cedars Christian College. She says, Justin is an engaging presenter and an effective communicator who uses humour and real-life examples to effectively identify and address some of the difficult issues faced by parents of teens. Justin's open and honest approach to parenting is refreshing, and this presentation comes with my highest recommendation. That was a presentation that I gave at Cedars Christian College about raising terrific teens. Joe O'Brien, who's the owner and director of Platinum Preschool at Randwick, said this about a presentation that I gave to preschool parents. The feedback that we've had about Dr. Justin Coulson's presentation has been astounding. He was engaging, articulate, and best of all, provided positive and easily applied advice for busy parents. Many of our parents have expressed heartfelt gratitude for inviting Dr. Justin to speak and have told us that his strategies are already having positive effects in their families. We look forward to Justin returning to speak again as soon as possible. And I might just add that Jo and her team have already booked me again for 2015 because it went so well. 2 more very quick ones for you. This one is from a real estate office in Dapto at PRD Nationwide Dapto. Tracy McDonald, who owns the business there, said, "We had the pleasure of Justin doing a training session for our team. It was the second time. We wanted to raise the bar of service that we provide our clients, but this was not possible if the whole team didn't see the benefit of raising their own personal bar. Justin's positive psychology talk, Will the Best Me Please Stand Up, inspired both managers and the team to increase their performance in simple, easy-to-maintain ways. The team was inspired by Justin, and we look forward to having him back a third time." Let me add to that, PRD Nationwide Dapto have actually invited me back to run a series of seminars in 2015 because they're getting such great results as a result of the things that I shared. I love what I do. I love making a difference, and I would love to come and speak at your workplace or your school or your children's preschool or high school or primary school. I travel all over the country. In 2015, I think I'm booked for Phillip Island in Victoria, Gippsland in Victoria, a handful of spots in Queensland. I'm heading to Perth. I'm heading to Auckland, and I might be also heading to Adelaide, although that's still being arranged. So, if you'd like me to be involved and to make a difference, get in touch via my website, justincoulson.com, and just make your inquiries through the speaking page. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, that's all the announcements. Let's wrap up the podcast now with an inspirational quote to hang on to for the week and to talk about in your families or your classrooms or your offices. I couldn't decide between two quotes, so I've decided to share both. The first one is from Winston Churchill, who was a pretty inspiring speaker, and he said this: "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." I love that quote. It might be worth sharing with your family and having a chat about pessimism and optimism and finding the opportunities in every difficulty. But this is my favourite, from Victor Hugo in Les Mis: "Even the darkest night will end and the sun will rise." Optimism, it changes our outlook on life, and the sun will rise. So that's it for this podcast. Thank you for listening. Remember to hold on to your forks. The best is yet to come. If you have any questions that you'd like answered, go to justincoulson.com/questions. I'll do my best to answer them in an upcoming podcast. You can leave me a voice message there, or you can send me an email. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, you'll find the outline, you'll find the resource links in the show notes at justincoulson.com/podcast/7. That's with the number 7. Let me also just quickly encourage you, as I do every week, to share the podcast. If it's made an impact on you or if it's helped you in your professional life or in your parenting, I'd be most appreciative if you would just visit justincoulson.com/podcast/7. You'll find the Twitter and Facebook links already pre-populated and ready to go. You can share them with your friends, your followers, tell everybody about the podcast and help it to make a difference, an impact in their lives. I'd also be tremendously grateful if you would rate the podcast on iTunes. And of course, as you know, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes as well. Please do that. That is it for this week. I'll have another podcast ready to go for next week. Until then, remember, the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another.